Spanish soldiers destroyed Tortuga's fortress, buried its guns, and threatened to kill anyone who returned. Then they sailed away. Within months, settlers were rebuilding. Spain had conquered the pirate island. Why couldn't it keep Tortuga dead? 3 decades earlier, Tortuga was barely a colony at all. It was a steep, forested island off the northern coast of Hispaniola, close enough to watch Spanish ships pass, but awkward enough to defend and expensive enough to control. That made it useful to exactly the people Spain did not want there. French and English hunters crossed from Hispaniola. They smoked cattle meat over wooden frames called boucans, sold hides, planted tobacco, traded with smugglers, and sometimes joined raids at sea. Tortuga did not begin as a pirate republic. It began as an illegal frontier settlement living inside the gaps of an empire. Spain tried to close that gap. In 1635, a Spanish expedition attacked the English-led settlement. Colonists were killed, captured, or driven away. Spain had cleared Tortuga, but it had not replaced them with a permanent Spanish town. Survivors scattered across Hispaniola and the surrounding islands. Other hunters continued moving along the coast. Slowly, foreign settlers returned to Tortuga. Spain had won the battle and recreated the empty frontier that had attracted them. Around 1640, François le Vasseur arrived with a French commission and a much more dangerous idea. Le Vasseur was a soldier and engineer. Instead of treating Tortuga as a temporary camp, he turned it into a weapon. Above the harbor, he built Fort de la Roche, a stone stronghold protected by cliffs and a narrow approach. Cannon watched the anchorage below. An attacker entering the harbor would be firing uphill while the defenders fired down. The island Spain had cleared was now harder to remove than before. Ships brought weapons and buyers. Hunters brought meat and hides. Raiders brought stolen cargo, captives, and Spanish cannon. Levasseur taxed the trade and took his share from the violence passing through his harbor. Before a raiding ship sailed, its crew often set down an agreement: who supplied the vessel, how the plunder would be divided, what a man would receive if the expedition cost him an arm, a leg, or an eye. On deck, survival depended on cooperation between men who might share neither language nor king. Together, these hunters and raiders became known as the Brethren of the Coast. They were not Tortuga's government, and they were never one unified army. They were a loose fraternity connected by expeditions, shared profits, and common enemies. Their rules protected the men inside the agreement. They offered no protection to the people being robbed, tortured, enslaved, or killed. Levasseur was equally selective about whose rules he followed. He quarreled with his French superiors, protected his own power, and accumulated enemies. Around 1652, men from his own circle assassinated him. For a moment, Tortuga's supposedly impregnable fortress belonged to the killers. Then, Timoleon de Fontenay arrived under French authority with hundreds of men. He took control, strengthened the defenses, and governed in the French king's name. Tortuga was not a free pirate state. It was a colonial outpost whose governor profited from the raiders in his harbor. Spanish shipping and settlements paid the price. By late 1653, officials in Saint-Domingue decided that Tortuga had to be destroyed again.
The expedition nearly failed before it arrived. Storms scattered the Spanish ships. Some ran aground. Only part of the force reached Tortuga in early 1654, and a captured vessel had already warned de Fontenay that they were coming. The fort's cannon dominated the main harbor, so the Spaniards refused to attack where Tortuga was strongest. They landed farther along the coast at Cayón and advanced overland. De Fontenay sent men to stop them, but Spanish naval guns covered the landing. The defenders withdrew into Fort de la Roche. For days, the Spaniards stared up at a fortress designed to make a direct assault suicidal. Its walls sat against a steep, rocky height. Its cannon could smash ships below. From the harbor, it looked untouchable. The Spaniards did not attack from the harbor. They climbed above it. During the night, Spanish troops and laborers hauled cannon onto the heights behind the fortress. At dawn, a shot crashed into the governor's residence from above. De Fontenay moved his defenders and built new cover. The Spaniards shifted their battery and fired down again. After more than a week of siege, food was deteriorating and the defenders were breaking. Some demanded surrender, others wanted to fight on. Finally, de Fontenay accepted terms. Fort de la Roche had fallen because the Spaniards turned its own mountain into a gun platform. They captured the fortress, ships, ammunition, and dozens of cannon. The French were allowed to leave. The settlement was torn down, and a Spanish garrison remained behind. This time, Spain had not merely raided Tortuga, it occupied it. De Fontenay tried to return and was driven off. The garrison held the ruins. Tortuga appeared to be finished. Then, a much larger English fleet appeared, not at Tortuga, but off Saint-Domingue. Oliver Cromwell's Western design tried to seize Hispaniola in 1655. The attack on Saint-Domingue failed, but Spain suddenly needed every available soldier to defend the colony. Men guarding a ruined island across the channel had become a luxury. The question was no longer whether Spain could take Tortuga, it was whether Spain could afford to keep it. Before withdrawing, the garrison demolished the remaining fortifications, removed or buried the guns, and posted its lethal warning. By August 1656, the soldiers were gone. Spain had won the siege and abandoned the prize. Later that year, Elias Watts arrived from Jamaica with his family and a small group of settlers. They found broken walls and an empty harbor. Watts raised a 4-gun battery. More settlers followed. Buccaneer ships returned, and the Brethren of the Coast again had a refuge. Tortuga changed flags once more. Around 1660, Jérémie Deschamps du Rosset replaced Watts and asserted French control. A few years later, French company officials acquired the rights, and Bertrand d'Ogeron arrived to govern Tortuga and the expanding settlements across the channel. The island had survived, but the world that made it famous was already disappearing. Permanent towns and plantations spread through western Hispaniola. The frontier of hunters and raiders was becoming the French slave colony of Saint-Domingue. Tortuga's pirates were not unbeatable. Spain captured the island twice, but keeping it empty required ships, soldiers, and money every year. Bringing it back required only a harbor, a few guns, and the knowledge that Spain had sailed away. Spain conquered Tortuga. France kept it by building something larger, richer, and even more brutal in its shadow.